Welcome. Adrenal fatigue. Let's jump into that really quick because that terminology has been used for decades. In fact, I go back in my career to I would say even the early 90s. There was this concern that so many of us that were starting to experience fatigue in general, we would immediately start terming it or classifying it as adrenal fatigue. And there's a lot of research been done on the adrenals and the energy of things like hormones like cortisol specifically, and then of course adrenaline. And what does that actually mean? What is the definition of adrenal fatigue? This idea that if you're stressed out, you're living in a chronic stressful environment, which means your body is systemically stressed, which means you're likely in a condition of systemic inflammation, and your adrenal glands are consistently and continually manufacturing cortisol and adrenaline, like your body's in fight or flight, that we would put undue stress. In fact, we would burn out the adrenal glands. Now, what the research tells us is that we're not seeing that as often as we might think. The adrenal glands tend to be still high functioning during these chronic periods of stress. And yet, we're seeing cortisol levels continually on the rise, which means the adrenal glands are working. Some of the work that's looked at the adrenal glands have said, well, we don't see adrenal glands failing. We don't see them dropping. And under those circumstances, their ability to generate cortisol and adrenaline, otherwise known as epinephrine, we're just not seeing that. So what is happening in our body? And what it seems to be more this chronic fatigue that we're getting, that we call chronic fatigue from adrenal fatigue, essentially. What it seems to be more related to is certainly inflammation, chronic inflammation, and high levels of cortisol that are in fact generating a lot of these burnout processes. When you remain in a fight or flight, you're triggering so many receptors. Remember that adrenaline and cortisol are both hormones, and they're pushing all of these organs. They're pushing your heart, your lungs, your muscles, your brain. And there is going to be this point where you are burned out. And we've all been there. We've all felt burned out by stressful situations, whether it be your professional life or your personal life, where when you're in a chronic state of fight or flight, it burns you out. You're going to get fatigue. And in many ways, the adrenal gland is central to that process because it is the organ producing these hormones. And yet, it doesn't seem to be the thing getting fatigued. The adrenal gland is contributing to this adrenal fatigue. However, it itself is not getting fatigued. What's getting fatigued is the rest of our body, this chronic stress. So how can we loop in? How can we understand more of the root causes of this? And of course, I want to implicate the biome, the gut. There is a gut-adrenal axis. And the main reason that this axis is so important is we know the gut modulates and modifies and essentially contributes to the functioning of our hormones, both cortisol, adrenaline, dopamine, estrogen. All of these hormones are intimately linked to the microbiome. They are capable of modulating this particular axis. And so when your gut is in a state of inflammation and your estrobolome, which is in women, is in a dysbiotic where it's producing and not controlling the estrogen reuptake properly, and then we look at all of the impacts that can have on the adrenal gland to produce unwanted adrenaline surges or cortisol surges, we know that the gut, a dysbiotic gut or an unhealthy gut, is contributing to this adrenal push, which creates what we colloquially will term the adrenal fatigue. So circling back to that, it's important that we investigate one of the root causes, which is an unhealthy gut, a gut microbiome that is sending signals. There's players in there that are pushing this gland, pushing the adrenal gland when it's unnecessary, because stress beginning in the gut will lead to systemic stress. It'll lead to heart, lung, and other organ stress, including the adrenals. So it's important that we do that. And of course, the adrenals are associated with the renal and the liver and all that. So we need to look at the gut. High levels of toxins will push this fight or flight. So as our microbiome is producing toxins, and we're also being exposed to toxins, we can start pushing this adrenal fatigue. So that is a key. I find that one of the most important aspects of this phenomenon of what we call adrenal fatigue, because the gut will stimulate that through the adrenal gland. And in other ways, we need to look at our sleep cycles. That's important. And again, there is a gut association with sleep cycles. If you're not sleeping properly, you're going to continue this cycle of adrenal push, cortisol highs and lows, and this is going to impact the gut. The dysbiosis will increase with sleep patterns, and the reverse is also true. The dysbiotic gut will really impact your sleep quality. This leads to, of course, low energy, these rises and falls of your energy throughout the day, and then you find yourself wanting to lean into caffeine drinks or other forms of stimulants, which of course then also can create some dysbiosis, as well as they push this mechanism, and you're going to just exacerbate these ups and downs. You're just going to go through these roller coaster rides of fatigue, and then of course highs and lows, and of course disrupt your sleep. These are all connected. This is one connected system. So again, adrenal fatigue, or the adrenal gut axis, is an important axis to think about. It's an important axis to modulate properly. And the tools that I've talked about before, look at your diet, look at your caffeine, your stimulant intakes, look at your sleep, and then work on your gut health. And of course, then your lifestyle choices that lead to stress. And really target a stress that you can see the end of is a good stress. It's been shown over and again. If you're in a stressful situation, but you know how to get yourself out of it, and then you celebrate making it through a stressful moment, you've turned that stress into a positive modulator. It is actually really good for your body to go through these stresses and come out of the other side feeling achieved, feeling successful, really living in that moment, because this is the hormesis, or the hermetic principle of feeling those stresses. These are good for us. This is good for longevity. Chronic stress is the opposite. If you feel like you're out of control, you can't do it, we need to work on that from the gut outwards into our lifestyle. Make sure we deal with that, because if you do not deal with these things, all of these symptoms I talk about are just going to get worse and worse, and you're going to feel less empowered, less in control. So work on your gut, always work on your gut, but also look on your lifestyle. Look at these stresses, look at the gratitudes, find a way through each stress and celebrate your wins. That doesn't, and that goes along with your diet and all these other choices that I speak to all the time. I don't want to sound like a broken record there, but turn adrenal fatigue into an achievement each and every time that you do this. And you'll find that you're improving your gut, you're improving this cycle, the adrenal gut axis, and you're going to start feeling so much better about your outcomes, and your sleep will improve, and it's just